Production funding for Another View comes from the Hampton Citizens Unity Commission, using the time, talents, and skills of a broad base of citizen volunteers to help break down racial and cultural barriers, working to achieve the City of Hampton's community plan for a healthy, diverse community. And from the African American Programming Advisory Group, community visionaries assisting WHRO to engage, enlighten, educate, and entertain all communities in Hampton Roads. And now, Another View.
Good evening and welcome to Another View. An economy in recession, double-digit unemployment in the African American community, and more layoffs to come have some wondering if they would be better off working for themselves. But is now the right time to start a business? And if you are going to start a business, if you are a business owner, how do you protect yourself during this economic downturn? Joining us to discuss entrepreneurship is Louisa Strayhorn, owner of LSA Consulting, LLC, Calvin Jones, CEO and owner of Ritapest Corporation, and W. Wayne Perry, president and owner of Community Personal Care Incorporated. Welcome, everybody, to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I have a question I'm going to ask each of you to start off with, and that is, looking at today's economic situation, if you were to do it, start fresh today, would you start your own business? Let me start with you, Louisa.
Absolutely. Perfect time. I think that what happens is during economic downturns, if you pick the right business, you actually have many more opportunities to be successful. It takes less money in many cases for you to start a business. You have a pool of incredible talent, many of them who have been laid off on other companies, and you can take advantage of that. And I would say to you, the major thing is if you have management skills. I would not start it if I did not have that.
The management skills.
Yes.
What about you, Calvin? You started, you own a company.
More so now than 2000 when I originally incorporated.
And why is that? For some of the same reasons Louisa said?
Well, a lot of from the same reasons that Louisa said, but in addition to that, we find that customer service is number one, and that's what customers are looking for now, more service. And we need to tend towards more of what the actual consumer wants to see and hear.
So when you have a niche and you can reach that consumer,
yes,
now is the best time to try to do that.
Now is the best time.
Okay. What about you, Wayne?
Well, I concur with Louisa. I really think it depends on what type of business you're going to start. I think in this economic climate, you're having a difficult time borrowing money. So if you have a capital-intensive business, now may not be a good time. However, you have a pool of talent that is available and ready and looking for work. So you have that as a positive right now. You can recruit and retain some fabulously talented people that otherwise may not have been available. So I think it really is determined by what type of business you want to start now.
Now, each of you owns your own business, and you've been in business for a while. Calvin, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your story. What made you go into the pest control business?
Well, I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and it was quite of a culture shock when I originally moved here in 1991. Based on the pay in which I was earning in upstate New York as opposed to the hourly pay that was offered here in the state of Virginia. So I said the only way in which to combat that would be basically to look for something from a sales perspective or go into some type of service type of industry. And the termite and pest control industry was similar to sales, but it wasn't direct sales. And I found that out once I actually started interviewing with different companies, and they started giving me a little more hearsay as far as exactly what the sales approach would be from a termite and pest control standpoint. Because you're not selling a particular product, you're absolutely selling the need, which is always evident here in this particular area from the termite and pest control standpoint.
So you decided at some point, so you were working for other people first?
Yes,
okay,
to gain the experience from the termite and pest control.
Okay, at what point did you say, you know what, I got to do this on my own?
When I got to the point where I realized I had basically gotten to a situation where the growth with the companies that I had worked for in the past was at a stalemate. I couldn't go any higher than where I was going to be able to go. So it's like, wait a minute, I've got too many skills, I've got too much knowledge, I've got too much in which to offer to this particular company, and I'm being basically stagnated to the point where my hands are being tied. So I had no other choice but to say, it's time for me to step up on my own.
And we're
And
going
a
to
lot
talk
has
about,
to do with faith.
I was going to say, we're going to talk about how you got the nerve to do that in a moment. But Wayne, let me ask you, now you have a law degree, you were working in hospital administration. What made you decide to get into the home care, personal care industry?
Barbara, my story is well documented. I had a grandmother that received personal care, which is an alternative to nursing home placement, back at home in Durham, North Carolina. And my grandmother was not treated very well. The quality of the service, the care, the standards just was not what we as a family expected. And because of that, I felt I could do it better. And so it's really a passion of mine. It's not just something that I felt I wanted to do. I almost felt obligated to do it. So it was something that I looked into, I researched, and with the help of my father and his retirement, I guess I would say, I started my own business. And that's how I kind of got started.
And Louisa, what was your story?
Well, mine started because I would say the glass ceiling certainly moved me along to starting my own business. As a woman, especially an African-American woman, at the time when I was in corporate America, there were a number of challenges that weren't associated with whether or not you had skills or talent, but associated with who you were. And unfortunately, that was one of those challenges that I was able to overcome but never forgot. And it seemed like whatever I went to corporate America, I would continually face it. And frankly, I got tired. And I decided that given the fact that I had a myriad of interest in just about everything, I absolutely loved working and being in business, that I said, when I went into public office, that was the time for me to start my own company, and that's what I did. And to advise other people on all the things that I learned, to me, sort of fulfilled my mother's dream for me, and that was, if you're born intelligent and God gave you gifts, then you have to give back.
Get back to that. Now, I owned my own business at one point, also Ham and Fox, and I hear a theme throughout all of you all's stories, which is one, recognizing a need, and another one, the faith to step out there. What exactly does it take to be an entrepreneur? Because I don't think I really had the entrepreneurial spirit enough that I needed it in order to forge through no matter what. So what does it take, Wayne?
First, a lack of fear. You cannot be afraid to succeed. You have to have a positive outlook.
Interesting. You said be afraid to succeed as opposed to being afraid to fail.
That's because the glass is always half full, not half empty. And that is a perspective on life in order to really be effective as an entrepreneur. That's one key component I believe you have to have.
Calvin, what do you think? What else do you need?
The quality to know that whatever that your competitor is doing, you can do it better. And I saw in myself that what I saw other companies doing, I know that what I had to offer was a lot better. And like I mentioned to you earlier, faith. It was a situation where me and a friend of mine, who happened to be one of my clients, decided, okay, one day, let's just go ahead and do this. And ironically enough, it came at the same time in which we were planning our marriage. So to say chaotic situation at that particular time all kind of rolled in together.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was fun. But I mean, I was not afraid at all, right from the beginning.
Louisa, everybody's spoken. Nobody has said you got to have money.
Well, you know, that comes after the next one that I was going to give you, and that has to do with focus and focus and focus, okay? And knowing exactly what is the product or service that you actually have that you believe everyone will want, or at least a niche of the population. So before you even get to the discussion about the access to capital, you have to know what you want to do. You have to believe in it. And I mean believe in it enough for you to work on it 24/7. And if you do that, then you can talk about the next question, which is a big one, the access to capital. And that is true.
Okay, I promised people always on this show that we would really give them some real concrete advice. So now you hear all about business plans, and you got to have business licenses, and you got to do all these things to get started. Brass tacks, basic, what do you do first? Who wants to take it first?
I'll take it first.
Okay.
Self-motivation. You've got to have, you've got to have that self-drive in you to want to get out there, to take the step. Because this is already your dream. You already know in your mind what you want. Your plan is already set in your mind itself. It's a matter of you exercising and initiating your plan. Work your plan, and everything else will fall in place.
How do you do the plan? How do
Well,
you have
actually,
to go to attorneys and spend money
no, you
and
don't.
all of that?
No, it's really and truly a business plan. And frankly, every one of my clients, they can't even come to me for help unless they're willing to sit down and do a business plan. It's a map of where you're going. That's what it is. It's a map. So if you picture where it is that you want your business to be within 5 years and what are the components that are necessary for you to get there, then you're going to be putting in what kind of capital do you need, how many people do you need, what kind of people, are they the right people, what kind of management skills are you going to need. You're going to have to know what's called a supply chain. Who's going to supply you the raw goods for you to be able to do the product, and who are you going to sell it to? All those pieces that come into it go into the business plan so that you will know how to lay out your business. And then finally, the one thing that you know is what kind of credit did you have personally? I will tell you that this makes a difference, because if you have good credit, then you have many more places in which to have access to capital than if you have bad credit. And the credit I'm talking about is not for the business. You know, unfortunately, people think you have to have good credit for the business. Good credit means your credit,
personal credit.
because every bank and every institution, including the government, will not loan you money if they don't think you have, in quotes, good character, which is defined by your having good credit.
Very interesting. Did you start your business at home, Wayne? Or did you go out and get office space? And because you have the largest of the three businesses that were represented today.
The idea certainly started at home, but no, I had to have an office space because my business is based upon a staff, several employees, and I had to have an opportunity to give them a place to work. Also, depending on what type of business you have to have a degree of credibility in the community. And some businesses you just can't start in your garage or in your living room or dining room table. You just can't do it. But I want to get back to your question. I think there are four things, and I think certainly you want to avail yourself of someone like Louisa's expertise to establish a business plan. But I've often told people that if it starts well, usually it will end well, usually. And I think you have to have an outstanding lawyer, you have to have a good accountant, and you have to have a good banker. Not necessarily in that order, but all at the same time. And then I don't want to slight the insurance agent, because you have to have a good insurance agent, because that can make all the difference as well.
Because you've got to protect your business also.
You've got to protect your business. There was a young lady over in Newport News that recently had a food mart that burned down.
Yes, and she had no insurance.
And she had no insurance. And I would say she could not have afforded not to have insurance. So that goes back to you've got to have capital as well. And character, as Louisa so wonderfully pointed out, is extremely important to get access to that capital.
All three of you are in business. You're doing well. How are you making it through this economic downturn? Let me start with you.
Well, one of the things that, first of all, it depends on what kind of business that you're in. In my particular case, as it is in most, the one thing that we all need to do is what's called a gap analysis, and that is to, when you get into economic downturn, you want to identify where are you now, what are the really good things about your business that are keeping you running, and what are the things that are challenges right now. Okay, that's one. Number two is, who are the people, the actual crucial people that you need to run your business every day? And what are you doing to make sure that they're not going to jump ship for someone else in these particular times? What are you doing to make sure that your core team is there until the end? It may take you going into partnership with them. It may take you offering a different kind of incentive, but you need to sit down and talk to them about it. And so those are things, and I'm sure everyone else has things to say, but I would say I'd start out with those kinds of things. But the gap analysis, if you don't know where you are, how do you know where you're going to go in order to get out of this. How can you fix the problem?
Calvin, is pest control something that people say, okay, the dollars are tight, so I can forego that? Are you having to deal with that type of issue?
Oh, of course, day to day. But the flip side of that coin too is we're not just termite and pest control, but we're also diversified ourselves to the point where we're also using subcontractors. We're doing contracting work. We're doing repair work, structural damage type of things. Anytime I enter an individual's home where the need is not necessarily from a termite or pest control need, they may need a plumber, an electrician, a pipe fitter. All these are networking in which I'm doing on my own with other individuals, other contractors whom we talk to.
So that partnership again.
That partnership again.
That Louisa was talking about.
Exactly, exactly.
Have you faced layoffs? Have you faced any difficulties in your industry?
Well, fortunately, we have benefited tremendously from the stimulus package. So layoffs right now, we're still in the growth mode. As you know, I'm in healthcare, and
they say that's one of the only industries that is growing.
Well, and I think that's because if your loved one needs care or needs care at home, that demand is not changing. And as we get into the baby boomer generation, you have more people that need services. You have people living longer and people living sick longer. Consequently, our services are still growing. Okay. And we still have a demand.
We got about 2 minutes left to talk giving back to the community. Well, let me ask you this. Is there an expectation of you all as African American business owners from other African Americans in terms of the business that you provide? Do you know what I mean? In other words, do people have a different expectation of you than they would have of others that may service them in the same way? Wayne, you shook your head. Let's start with you.
I think without a doubt there is a burden and a responsibility that we all carry. At the same time, only thing that I ask is that if you expect to come into my organization and have a leadership role, that you have all the qualities that anyone would expect a leader to have. Unlike what Louisa talked about, there's no glass ceiling in my company. 99% of my employees are female. And I think in healthcare, you find that females dominate
right.
the caregiving. So we're a little different.
Okay. Calvin?
From my perspective, dealing with customers from a day-to-day standpoint, I find myself having to do more for the customer than from a competitor's perspective. And by doing that, I'll ask more questions. I'll try to get to the root of the problem as opposed to just going in there and just sniffing out whatever I can visually see from the problem perspective.
Okay.
What caused it? Okay.
So you give more personal care.
More personal care in addition to follow-up.
Okay.
Okay.
And Louisa, we got about 20 seconds.
I know.
I know, I'm sorry.
Yes, they do expect more, and frankly, when you step out there, you should be willing to give more. And I think that the service that we owe to the people, whether or not it's fair or not, it has nothing to do with that. It's what we need, and we all need to work together to supply that.
You guys are just fabulous. I wish you the best as you continue in your own businesses, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's Louisa Strayhorn of LSA Consulting, Calvin Jones of Ritterpest Corporation, and Wayne Perry of Community Personal Care. And when we come back, some advice on child custody. But first, a look at some happenings around Hampton Roads. Welcome back, everybody. Divorce can be a painful process, especially when there are child custody issues. In tonight's lifestyle segment, attorney Michael Massey has some information about child custody and the courts.
What are some of the common misconceptions in seeking custody?
Well, the most common misconception is that custody is always going to be awarded to women. And that's really not the case anymore. I mean, years ago, it was kind of assumed that custody would be awarded to the woman in the case, but the court really looks at both parties and makes a decision based on the best interest of the child, and oftentimes that could be the male parent instead of the female parent. I've had cases where the courts have awarded custody to the fathers because they were the best parent to take care of the child. And it was obviously in the child's best interest to be with the dad. Even though I think it's still the same that judges like joint custody to the extent of both parents being fully involved in legal decisions that are being made for the child. But still, when it comes to the primary custodial parent, the judges look at them very fairly and will award it to either parent.
Are children usually consulted during custody hearings, or does it depend on their age?
The children are consulted if they are of an age where the court thinks that their opinion should be considered. Obviously, very minor children, children under 5 and so forth, they're not able to really articulate where they would like to go in a meaningful way. But once children get about 8 years old, the courts can talk to them if the guardian ad litem feels that they have some information that they would like to convey to the court themselves. The guardian ad litem can make the court aware of that and then have them talk to the court directly. The court will consider it.
What should a person know or do before seeking custody?
The most important thing is that they need to have their lives together. The court is going to look very critically at everything that's going on in their lives, whether it's work, social, spiritual, whatever they present in the court is going to be critical of it. And there may be home studies done on either parent. And so you really need to have yourself together. I mean, you need to be working. You need not have a boyfriend or girlfriend living in the house with you where those children would be living, because the courts still frown upon that. And if there's a boyfriend or girlfriend living in the house, that's not going to be acceptable to the court.
Now, you can find out more information about attorney Mike Massey and all of our lifestyle experts by visiting anotherview.tv and clicking on About Our Experts. It's called Youth Entertainment Studios, or YES, a Christian-based group that teaches values through the production of music and music videos. One program within YES works exclusively with young women. It's called the Impact Program, and it's doing just that, making an impact.
16-year-old Ariel Richardson may not be a Grammy winner, but thanks to Youth Entertainment Studios' Impact program, she's definitely on a winning path. Through Impact, Ariel was able to produce her first video with a friend. But there's much more to this program than making music. Impact is shaping lives. Prior to getting into the program, Ariel described herself this way.
I was shy.
She says she did have friends, but
the friends that I was with, there was trouble. So I just had to let them go.
Impact is the youngest arm of Youth Entertainment Studios, or YES, which teaches teenage boys and girls skills like television production and artist development. But Impact specifically targets young ladies between the ages of 13 and 18 and has been doing so for the past 4 years.
Different studies have shown that girls often do better when they're isolated because of the pressures from the opposite sex and trying to show off. So we wanted to do something that kind of pulled them together. And also, as African American young girls, which is the population that we primarily deal with, there's always been an issue with girls, and I don't like girls, and I can't get along with girls. So we wanted to do a program that would teach some character development, but within a specific setting of them working with each other and working with us.
As of July 2002, the Joint United Nations Program on HIV/AIDS estimated that of 18 million women were living with AIDS.
You rap. So is there any way that you would want to take that information and put it into the form of rap?
I can.
Okay.
Courtney Green has been directing the program since it started in 2004. She says they wanted to do something in response to some of the increased gang activity and teen pregnancies among African American teenagers. Some of the girls are ordered into the program through the courts, while others live nearby and come on their own.
We just really wanted to do something that was able to pull them out of a lot of the situations that they're in.
17-year-old Victoria Alexander says thanks to the program, she definitely makes better decisions.
I was in a lot of trouble, and Youth Entertainment Studios have helped me to deal with those types of situations, and they helped me with stuff, schoolwork, and attitude.
Kavanche Jenkins says she initially thought the program would be boring, but instead it taught her some valuable lessons.
That I can't fight all the time, that I can get along with people, I gotta try hard. Not hard, I just gotta put more effort into it.
After this group of young ladies graduate from the program, another group will take their place. Girls who probably won't get along at first, but who will eventually learn to work together, make better decisions, and possibly a music video along the way. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Thank you, Lisa. We love to hear from you. Send us your show ideas or just tell us how we're doing. Go to anotherview.tv and blog us, or you can write us at 5200 Hampton Boulevard, Norfolk 23508. And please sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week email with information on upcoming shows. Next week, dealing with foreclosure. Thanks so much for joining us. Good night, everybody.
Production funding for Another View comes from Hampton's 400th Anniversary Committee and the Hampton Neighborhood Commission, partnering with neighborhoods throughout the city, working hand in hand to create vibrant places we are proud to call home and celebrate. And from the African American Programming Advisory Group, community visionaries assisting WHRO to engage, enlighten, educate, and entertain all communities in Hampton Roads.